Well, I'm generally known by the name Ajahn Sumedho, or it can be Lumpur Sumedho or Bhikkhu Sumedho, with the main emphasis on the word Sumedho, which was a name given to me when I ordained as a Samanera in 1966. I was born in Seattle, Washington, and grew up there, educated at the University of Washington, and also did a master's degree in University of California, Berkeley. And in 1953, I enlisted in the Navy. Spent 4 years in the Navy where I encountered Buddhism because I was on a ship that was a supply ship to American bases in Japan. This was 1955, and it was in Japan that I discovered Buddhism. And this was at a time when Alan Watts' book, The Way of Zen, had become kind of a bestseller. I read that, and I read D.C. Suzuki's book on Zen Buddhism, so my introduction was through D.T. Suzuki and Alan Watts. I knew nothing about Theravada Buddhism, and I remember Aldous Huxley in one of his books kind of dismissed it as just rule-keeping order, which didn't appeal to me. But in 1963, I went into the Peace Corps, and I was sent to Sabah in North Borneo, and there I was in a Theravadan area close to Thailand, and when I had holidays, I would go to Thailand and became quite enchanted by the whole Thai culture and Theravada Buddhism. So from then on, I discovered Vipassana meditation, and when my 2-year contract with the Peace Corps ended, I went to Thailand in order to find a teacher and possibly ordain as a Theravada monk. I was a very devout Christian during my childhood, but when I went into my adolescence, I began to question it. Some of the things that I was told to believe in didn't make sense. And I remember my mother once said it was impossible to doubt. Doubting was a sin, and you just believe what you're told in the creed and in the Bible. And as much as I tried to do that, I couldn't really convince myself. And I have a naturally skeptical nature. So I couldn't really believe in anything just because somebody tells me to. And so I rebelled. Later on, when encountering Buddhism, I realized this was a possibility to investigate life. That's what I wanted to do, was what's the purpose of life, what's the meaning, and to find out for myself rather than just accept what other people tell me. And I had that kind of natural inclination towards Buddhism because it is directional science for investigation. It's not, they don't compel you to believe in Buddha or any deity whatsoever. So I always thought this was a very intelligent approach to life, and I decided I wanted to to try it out, see if it worked. My mother was very upset, sent me a Bible and a common prayer book, and said I was a baptized Christian. But my sister, who was more broad-minded, had about religion, understood what I was doing, and so she informed my mother and father about my intentions, and eventually my parents no longer objected. They kind of accepted it. I went straight to Bangkok, and there I was for English language teacher, so I easily got a job at the university, Thammasat University, as a English language instructor. And I also started meditation, practicing meditation at Wat Mahathat, which is one of the major temples in Bangkok near the Grand Palace. And Thammasat University is across the street from Wat Mahathat, so in the morning I teach English, and in the afternoon cross over the street to Wat Mahathat, where the famous teacher of Vipassana, Tanjau Kun Chodok, who established the Wimbledon Monastery in London, was becoming a well-known teacher of meditation. So he was my first teacher. And I lived in Bangkok for about 6 months, mixing with the kind of expatriate Buddhist community who had all kinds of opinions and views about who is a good teacher and who is enlightened, and I became very confused by trying to decide, just listening to these views and opinions, and so I left Bangkok. I had to renew my visa to stay in Thailand, so I went up to Laos and to Vientiane, and spent a couple of weeks there, renewed my visa for Thailand, and there I met a Samanera, Canadian Samanera, who encouraged me to just ordain in Nong Khai, the town across the Mekong River where you enter Laos. And he seemed to have insight into Dhamma. He recommended I ordain, and just as a Samanera, and which is a novice monk, and then to just take the book, The Four Noble Truths, the Jnana-Tiloka version, and just meditate on this first sermon of the Buddha. And for some reason I took his advice, and I ordained in Nong Khai, 1966, as a Samanera, and my preceptor sent me to a forest monastery just outside the town itself, where I spent a year meditating on the Noble Truth, which led me to insight, and I realized I needed discipline. I needed to bow my head to submit to authority because I was quite rebellious and manipulative as my character. And so then I met a disciple of Ajahn Chah, who was what we call a Tudong Bhikkhu, meaning a wandering bhikkhu, living, carrying an umbrella with an alms bowl. And he came to the monastery I was living at Nong Khai, and he could speak English. And he's the one that referred to Luang Por Chah. I'd never heard of him before. And so I consulted with my preceptor about ordaining as a bhikkhu and going to stay with Ajahn Chah in Uwon, and my preceptor agreed to that. So in 1967 I ordained as a bhikkhu and spent my first Pansa, or rainy season retreat, with Luang Por Chah in Wat Ba Nong Papong. When I ordained, there was very little available in English on Buddhism. And when I was in the Peace Corps, I corresponded with in Sri Lanka with the Kandy Pali Publication Society, and also in Bangkok with the World Fellowship of Buddhists, and there was a Sri Lankan bhikkhu in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, Sri Tamananda, who sent me literature on suttas and translated from Pali to English. So I had these basic texts from little pamphlets sent from Kandy, from Bangkok, from Kuala Lumpur. Nowadays, everything's available on the internet. So it's quite a wonderful time for spiritual development, because all these ancient texts and that are being given voice on YouTube videos and so forth. So I appreciate that, because it's worldwide now. We get letters from South America, from Africa, from all over the world, who just hear our videos on the internet.